Hi guys, today I'm going to be walking you through everything you need to know to get started painting monsters using watercolors. For a list of everything you need to get started, be sure to check out the video description below and be sure to also subscribe for other videos just like this one. So first things first, we're just going to do a loose sketch of how we want our monsters to be shaped. Because they're all unique, you don't have to choose any particular shape and size, you don't have to follow mine, you can create your own fun size. So for mine, I'm gonna make mine my first guy with a little tail, kind of looks like a little blue whale. And we're actually gonna make this guy blue. And then maybe I'll do another one that's a little bit different. I'll make him more like a blob. And this is just to give us a general idea of how big we want to make them. So next we have to sketch out where we want the eye to go. So for this one, I'm going to do one big eye in the middle. And then I'm gonna do a mouth. These are gonna be happy monsters. And I'm gonna do some teeth. And the reason I like to do that is I plan to leave these areas white, so I gotta make sure that I'm sketching out where they're gonna be. For this one over here, I'm gonna make him a little bit more scary, so his mouth is gonna be open. And we're gonna draw some teeth in this guy. But not to worry about making it too perfect just yet, because we're gonna go ahead and add some color over top of that. I think we should give this one 3 eyes. So I'm gonna do 2 small eyes and 1 bigger eye in the middle. And this will be very important when we go and start adding our watercolors. So we'll make all these eyes facing different directions. Make sure when you're sketching out your monsters that you're not drawing too dark. We don't want these pencil lines to show through. So you'll notice you can barely see some of those lines, and that's what you want. So next we're gonna get started with our paints. All right. So I like to use my angled brush, but if you have a brush like this, a round brush, that works too. All right, so we're gonna start by creating little areas where we put little bubbles of water here. So you'll see I have a little bubble of water on the page, and then I'm gonna take a color. For instance, I could use some red, and I'm gonna lay it down in that bubble of water. And then I'm gonna get my head real close to the page, and I'm actually gonna blow on it and create a little watercolor explosion. So don't be afraid to practice first till you get it right. Even myself, who've been painting for many years now, I make mistakes because watercolor can be a little bit unpredictable, but that's okay with these monsters. We want them to be nice and unique. So you want it to feel like a short burst of air. I'm gonna put another one up here. And this one I'm gonna make pink. I'm gonna do a mix of pinks and reds on this one. So you see, it exploded out that way because I was facing that direction. My air went straight out. And we're gonna make these a little bit darker as we go, but to start out, we're just gonna, and see, I got a little bit on his eye, and that's why it's important to draw out the eyes first, because if you get any on the eyes, you can just use your paper towel and dab it right up. And no big deal if it's perfect. Like I said, these are supposed to be fun and unique. So we're not gonna do too many along the bottom. We're gonna keep them a little bit smaller, and I'm gonna alternate my pink and my red. And now I'm gonna start filling in the monster. So the way I do that is I take clear water and I fill in the shape that I'd originally designed. And that wherever the paint is still wet, it's gonna bleed over. So I'm using the tip of my brush just to tell the water where I want it to go. Now, wherever I put this water, that's where I'm also gonna be adding color. So now that we have all that laid out, I'm gonna take a really bright yellow and I'm gonna start just dropping it in. And these are rainbow monsters, so it's okay to have them nice and bright. And take some red and add a little bit of red. And I'm actually gonna direct over his tail right now and do a little poof there. Anywhere you have large globs of water, you can easily turn them into poofs. That's what we're gonna call them. So just taking a mix of yellows, reds, and pinks, to design this monster. Now we're not going to add any of these details until it's completely dry. And those little details there are what's going to bring it all together. So wherever you notice that it's a little bit lighter, you can just dab in some color. But we're going to want some variation, so don't be afraid to leave some of it lighter and some of it darker. And then if it's not bleeding, just help it along. You're wanting the page to be nice and wet. You can always add a little bit more water after, but that looks about right to me. Next up, we're going to do this guy right here. So this one we're going to make more in the galaxy colors because I'm going to add some white spots to him after and make him like a starry monster. But it's still going to be the same theory. So we start by adding a blob of blue and exploding it. Then we'll do another one down here and explode that too. And you may get an idea of what I'm doing now, so go ahead and start making all yours on your monster. That one went really crazy. We'll do a blue one here. If you find that they're not exploding at all, you probably just don't have enough water. You're wanting to have quite a lot. I'm going to use a little bit of teal now. This one I'm going to do some along the bottom. Makes a funny sound every time I do it. So now I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the first monster. I'm going to go in and add some clear water. And I do work fairly fast. If you're not as fast as me, that's okay. You can always pause the video and catch up. So in a starry night, you would see lots of blues. You would see maybe some purples, at least in this starry night. And then we would also have some lighter blues. If you get a chance, maybe check out my starry night tutorial. You'll get a sense of the types of colors I like to do on my starry nights. It's just for kids as well, although grown-ups can have fun doing it as well. I find the kids' tutorials are perfect for adults too because they're fairly straightforward, fairly simple, and they give everybody an idea of some of the basic techniques that you want to know in order to get started. So I noticed there's a little gap here. I could leave it, but I don't want to. I want to make them nice and splashy. All right, so now I have both splatter monsters done. I'm actually going to take this time and do some even more splatters, but this time they're going to be in the form of little speckles. So I'm going to take my brush, and I have a wide, flat brush, and I'm just going to tap some little splatters going out to make them even more whimsical and fun. And if some of the splatters end up on the monster, that's a good thing. And then for this monster, I think I'm going to do some red ones. You can turn your page around to help them make their way out. And this is a good technique for practicing how to make splatters because it's hard to go too crazy on these fun little monsters. All right. So now we have both monsters done. I think that's a good time to stop and let them dry. And once they're fully dry, we'll get started on the next coat. So now that my monsters are dry, I can go ahead and add a little bit more detail onto them. So that just means doing some eyes and adding the color where there is none before I go in with the black. So I forgot to draw out the rest of this eye. So we're just going to draw a circle in the middle and then another circle like that. Oh, leave a little spot of white for that eye. All right, so we're going to leave his teeth white. We're going to leave the whites of his eye white, but I think we're going to make the eye itself green. And I'm going to use a nice bright green, but whatever green you have on hand is totally fine. And if you want to make his eye yellow, you can do that too. We're not putting water down first for this eye. We're just going straight in with the green. And then for these eyes, I think we're going to make them yellow. So So this one got a bit of splatters on it. No big deal at all. We're just gonna roll with it. We're gonna make all these eyes yellow. And if you happen to have a blow dryer laying around, this would be a good time for you to dry your painting. Because, I'm just gonna take a little bit of pink here first, because if you speed it up, it can be fun. You can do a lot of monsters at once. But if not, you can always just let it dry. As long as you don't have too much water on the page, it should dry within a few minutes. If you use too much water, that's okay. You can always take, I'll show you what to do. You can take the corner of a paper towel and just dab up a little bit of the water like that. And then go back in with some really saturated color, meaning some really dark color, and go over top. But I like to have an old blow dryer around just to give it a little bit of help. So we'll dry this up and then I'll show you how to add the final details. So my monsters are all dry now. So I'm gonna use a tiny little brush like this one and a very strong amount of black. And if you prefer, you can even use a marker. It's totally up to you. I like to use a Sharpie if I'm gonna be doing fine lines or a fine paintbrush. So you're just gonna wanna outline those eyes. Every little pencil line is gonna get outlined. And this just helps bring all these monsters together. I think they look extra silly now. You don't want to have too much water on your brush when you do this because it's harder to get those fine lines. You want to have a lot of color, not a lot of water. We're going to outline the mouth. We're not outlining the monsters themselves. We're going to let that be nice and splattery. And like I said, you can use a marker as well. If you feel like it gives you more control, that's totally fine. It takes quite a lot of practice to get quick with the paintbrush, but I find it's worth it. Because in a lot of my other tutorials, having the ability to use a fine brush can come in handy. So this is a great opportunity to practice. So for this eye, like I said before, I'm gonna keep a little spot white for a little sparkle in this monster's eye. He's very happy. Outline it. He thinks his fur looks pretty good, so. I'm doing quite a thick line here because he's got a little smile. And to finish up this guy, I want to use a little bit of white splatters. This is similar to my galaxy painting where I used a toothbrush. And if you don't have a toothbrush handy, that's totally okay. If you don't have white paint, just pick up any of your acrylic white paint, something you'd normally use for crafts. It's nothing special. And then you want to just loosely dip a little bit of the brush in it, and then using your thumb, we're going to add some little different size white splatters. And that's all we're doing with that guy. It's going to be a little bit messy, so keep paper towel handy if you have it to clean up after. All right. And I think these little monster dudes are missing some legs. So we're going to go and add some legs. So I think my red monster should have a few legs. So we're going to go some lines here. I think we're going to do 6 altogether. And for this guy, we'll just do 2. They're pretty straightforward. You can do as many legs as you want or as few legs as you want. And when you're all done your painting, you go ahead and sign it, and you are finished. If you enjoyed painting along with me, be sure to check out some of my other tutorials. I have quite a number of tutorials for kids. Hit the subscribe button if you want to be notified as soon as I release new videos, and hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed painting along with me. Thanks for watching.